2005. Some of you, I believe, have probably been in some of my classes from the country. Great to see you back. I'm really happy to be with you today for about 45 minutes to go over some very important information on observation skills. Clearly, one of the big difficulties we probably have when we are dealing with information from our community members is getting down information that we then turn into hopefully we'll do a great situation where we're going to make arrests and attention and get as much information as we can possibly get those people who are reporting that quickly or to be able to get that information. And those of you who know me, I say it all the time, and not our community members, we in law enforcement would not be able to do what we do with population. Enough of us around. Clearly, it's critical for you to be able to provide us with what input as you can and identify and address some of the concerns that you have in your community. Not strictly crime related, but I know explaining the idea of neighborhood watch to address an all hazards type of that not only are concerned with crime issues in our community, which of course all is high priority, but also address any issues that require our community to be involved and close the borders. Could be natural disasters, could be terrorism, and certainly as you'll get in some of the slides after 9/11, it became even more critical for our community. So that's what we are this morning, and I'm going to roll through the slides and opportunity for questions and answers. And you certainly can type anything you would like either or I will get back to you as opposed to Emily or type because I'll be typing. Clearly, we need citizens and active. You look for history, we have time with the that have gone unconverted, and when they've gone unconverted in time, it's really need community to be have their eyes open all the time, be listening, watching, observing. When you walk away from this scenario, I hope you will have better understanding of what to report and when to report it. Quick view of our objectives today is learning important other persons. That's something as I said a minute ago, there's not enough law enforcement to go around. Our community members being observant, keeping their eye and ears open, watching, looking, seeing what's happening around them. We can't get back to addressing crime or issues in our communities. You need to anywhere. And when I anywhere, I mean anywhere. For the you must observe something that you need to contact the police and provide them with or it could be crime, the opposite, anything. And that's why it's so critically important for you always to be aware of your surroundings, where you are at all times, especially those of us who travel a good deal, because with these things that you're going to have in a report. Even that observation in person reports relating to criminal activity, terrorism, or any other types of events that are important for law enforcement to be noted. The question about and report. While we talk about 911, I find intriguing that I with community members have actually told me they don't know how to report someone. And they even say, not because I can dial 911, it's because I really don't know what it is that I'm supposed to tell them when I call. So that is key here, what we are trying to accomplish are people to understand how they need to be reporting and how to obviously people in vehicles. How better you describe those? Not but it's and practice, I believe, can make us perfect at this particular skill. I would believe that me to observation skills on a daily basis. Average know a lot of things are going on around them. And you need to practice. You need to practice looking at people, deciding what they look like, their differences in vehicles. Some of us are very, very good at identifying those who like cars like I do. We're good at picking out kinds of vehicles on the road. And always laughs at me. He said, "Oh, you can set a dead tag on an automobile from a mile away." When I was on the road, on the job, I looked for other people that had uninsured vehicles, dead tags, fish tags, like on Mars. But a lot of us don't make those observations of the try to observe, and that's our goal here, to make you try to observe. Looking at suspicious activity, your idea of suspicious might be the same as mine, based on your familiarity with the situation. So making look suspicious to you, and obviously looking correctly. Legal activities. It looks not right. It's probably not right. We need people to be more focused on what type of things are going on around them. Feel illegal, and then certain and we can't get unusual types of events. Brought up 9/11 a minute ago, and certainly none of us 9/10/2001 would have ever anticipated what would happen the following day. And clearly, there were some unusual events that led up to that particular horrible day in our history. And these are the types of things people need to be more vigilant of. Dangerous situations, dangerous communities that cause hazards to your children, to your family members, to people driving the road, all sorts of things like that. Dangerous situations can have an impact on you and the community. Probably observe people, the incidents that may have all of us. We have to begin by learning the types of things that we have to observe. Knowing your skill set is very important. As you all know, I travel around each neighborhood from all four corners of the country. And I number of times that I have been in a strange location, a strange city or a strange town, and I have seen something that looked out of the ordinary. And I guess with all my years in enforcement and training that I've had, I'm always aware of where I am. But that is something, again, take practice, knowing where you are. You know, it's fun to say today. Many of you are probably calling in at different times zone. I'm in right now. What time it is you might be different for me. Stay awake, that's important. Also, in terms of when crime is occurring, if you note that every Monday, one of your neighbors at work, you notice strange on there every day, that's something that's important to be observation of, and perhaps to report of it. But you know, this setting is very important. In addition to that, you have to keep in mind, as brought up already, why it's suspicious you might not look suspicious or be suspicious to the law enforcement that you call, because you have to make a the particular situation. You are going to have to really be able to explain why it's suspicious to him or her. And that's based on what you're familiar with, surroundings, what is ordinary versus not ordinary, your community, your business, on your street, or each of them right to you. Now, how many of you practice describing people? I tell you what, I'm going to test today's the day. The test is when you leave wherever you are right now and you go home tonight, or you go to your next place of business, take a look at as many people as you can and try to give brief descriptions of what those individuals look like. And here's three different people. You can't be one of them. Each one of these individuals is different. Others. Again, race, perhaps ethnicity, their height or weight are all different. Those of you who have the police report know the police officer asks you to decide the individual. Hey, like, how old did it appear to you? How tall? What was their race? What was their gender? What was their weight? What was their status? Those are all important, very important skills for you to be able to observe people and what you see. What's important in a situation like this? Would you be able to take a look at you never before? Would you be able to make observations about what is specific, what's important, what's ordinary, what's not ordinary to a picture? Here we're looking at appears to be a parking lot. There's a parking building back, but how many things in this particular picture can point out you have to describe a particular situation or be around in someone? How many things in the picture would you be able to describe? Different vehicles. Clearly, the tags in the vehicle, I know if you noticed or not, but don't tag vehicles in the United States. I don't know what country they're from, but certainly not here. But there's an observation for you to look at the vehicle, look at the tag numbers, look at the surroundings. Moving it up, I have to do it's evening or nighttime. This picture was taken. There's heat on the street, but there's like snow on the ground too, so that kind of confuses it. How could it snow on the street? Just what's important in this picture if you have to make a decision of what your business. Routines are very important. We think about your neighborhood. You know, if you're a good observer in your neighborhood, I'm not about to see every person. I'm talking about everyday observations. As you drive to work, you drive your kids to school, or you drive yourself to school, wherever you may be going. How many things you notice in your neighborhood? Routines of people who live there. Are there neighborhood concerns? You know when people leave for work versus when people come home from work. You know what vehicles they have in their cars. Do they leave windows and doors open in the spring and summer? Those are important for you to get note of. Then those things change, and you see something as always does. There's an opportunity for you to make the observation. You know, nothing wrong with bringing it. Police come out and investigate something. Feel this is person making law. So clearly explain what it is that is to you. Keys that you look at. In a house during time of day. I mean, that made an indication of drug activity taking place in that particular house. Any number of things. Are there people in homes that work late at night? Are they coming late at night? Those are the types of keys you need to be looking at regularly. No, but this picture shows you running apart. That place that you normally go to, do you see people when you take your the park, your kids at the park? You have to be somebody sitting underneath one of these trees watching children and looking suspicious, and maybe you can notice with camera taking photographs. That might be something that you want to make a picture of and call the police about. Because again, that's something you do on your basis. You run hard on regular basis. You have to know an individual that police are not to look suspicious to you, and you want to make a report. Next picture, this police vehicle to flip over. What's this about this? Something that I look at this individual is standing by this police officer. I tell you, for police officers, you don't notice that somebody will have time there. They're not part of whatever scenario is that I'm trying to get. Maybe he's a witness. He's somebody to stand aside, make some information for you in a police way. Or maybe it's somebody behind and the officer not paying attention to him. And that could be a situation where you've been observed. Why is the person staying there? Hopefully those police officers know this person in there and the individual is there. Yeah, but what's suspicious to me may not be suspicious to you, and vice versa. That's something to remember. Just because you think it's suspicious, don't think, oh, this is not important. Nobody else will think it either. If you feel it is, then you need to make a report. That's important. activity that seems unusual, out of place. And that's unusual, out of place to you. To you. Officers, they respond when officers will call. They're just getting information from you as the observer, and you should describe to them as best you can why you feel situations unusual, why you feel suspicious. And we're not all trying to agree. We're not, fortunately, there's enough of us that we're not all driving this business. So you'll notice things that may not. And why you tell us why. Some examples of suspicious behavior might be a stranger, a neighborhood, or a vehicle cruising the streets repeatedly. Think about this when you have an opportunity to respond. What are the things we need to be looking at? And see the stranger light of your neighborhood, or suspicious vehicle driving your street. What are some things that you'd want to make an indication of in order to be able to report this late? So you'd be looking at the person is they're in a uniform, perhaps delivery person. Are they just hanging in the neighborhood, like in the neighborhood? The vehicle maybe looks suspicious. Someone turning a car window, that should be suspicious about anyone. I just a brief situation that see cars were broken in the neighborhood. I'm talking about like hundreds of cars got broken. And people have actually seen the suspect. They've seen this person. They're not on a vehicle. Now that's backpacks strapped to the back of their bicycle. They put it on stealing people's cars and sticking them in the backpack. People actually thought that some car just saw them looking into vehicles and didn't call the police. When I got very upset because there were so many cars broken into the house, and we talked about, well, you see, you have to call us. That the individual arrest. People now calling and reporting this suspicious behavior that for one reason or another, they're fellas in business or didn't should go to the police. And as soon as people get involved in this call, we may not have we refer some property. I think it's a real good lesson to the people in the community is involved and knows because they saw this person, he knew the person, and when he just this person, they get back to the same back for everything. In the last idea, high volume traffic coming from a home on a weekly basis. So maybe it's a business their home, like maybe it is running out their home legal business. And now we're talking about semi-traffic. If you people coming and going out for hours of the night, that probably is to do and make some occasions, write down tag numbers, some bills, and make it anonymous. You can report it anonymously, local law enforcement, and let them investigate. By doing, you might let activity happen in your community. We all don't let that happen. Straight odor coming from the house. Again, could be chemical used for type of drug and one of them. Change odor from a building or a vehicle. It's trouble to say this, but sometimes you see your neighbor and they're on their house and they haven't seen their car in days, and the problem is the illness or side to see inside their home. So you want to make an observation that contact someone. Some loitering around parks or areas. That makes us nervous. Anybody that's hanging around school, take a photograph, watch kids on the playground. That is something all of us are about. All of us are suspicious about. Same in parks or school areas. Through history, parks, school, whatever, and unfortunately, the end result is positive. Open doors and windows, closed business or non-keep residents could indicate that there's burglary. appreciate that perhaps the owners are there. Foreclosed homes, you have foreclosed homes in your communities, you know what happens that's vacant for a long period of time. That's just a great deal of time to get out to where everything's secure. Sometimes it's our residents reach out to these houses because people are in, they're stealing appliances, stealing coffee in houses, and not only are these crime in the community, but usually the houses run down, the grasses, that look, the community, the rundown community, who's getting messages with whoever owns them to try to at least make them residents for again, settle broken theory. If you look at bring back to it. Someone came with electrical suicide, you ask people when they come to your home for education, you're having on your internet or your phone lines. Do you ask for education? That they will always have it. They are limited. Just companies, they will always have identification. They will always provide you. Usually, we ask for identity themselves. But somebody walks up here, hi, I'm here to read your telephone line with no education, uniform, no vehicle that indicate company. That's what you need to avoid. All persons are to be working in unison and exhibiting suspicious behaviors. That could be a gang member. Ready to commit a robbery or a burglary to a home. These are just examples of situations that you may observe, of course, many more that you need to take note of. For your again, I have to remind you of 9/11, how we become much concerned about dams, electrical spills, all of that that create potential for activity. Other bucket would be Maryland. A few years back, the gentleman went every single day and ride horses around their bed. By day after night, he noticed this chain had been cut. So rather than going in and investigating, he called 911 to call and said, we find anything. We're secure the department. They checked the perimeter secure. What appeared was just the case. They were under IDs on this huge property. But there was in the that to call the police, let us out and investigate. Could have been on things we need to control of project character, basic information. And then take a look at the things features. Currently, then people. I'm going to show a vehicle. Take a look at this vehicle. And see if you can identify some things on this vehicle that are probably just not just characteristics, just general characteristics about the vehicle. Is there anything about the vehicle that's different than every other vehicle, or perhaps it has things that are added to it that make it a little bit different? About now, there's changeable details on the vehicle. You have a piece of paper, write it down, make a pretty normal. And then it looks ordinary. Now, what did you think? Hopefully, many of you saw the dents inside the vehicle. Hard to see unless you can get up close. There's run board on it, and the whole of the move, but the particular one does. The rear back, the paper over it. That's really the changeable detail. The general characteristic of this vehicle are the black Ford SUV. It's got running boards, it's got roof rack on it. Some interesting, if you know, it's got tinted windows. From a law enforcement perspective, that makes us very nervous. to that because we can't see a vehicle while on inside a vehicle. Then, so the change of characteristics that I'd be concerned with is the tag, the piece of paper over tag. That is something that I would be very concerned about. And that change of thing, obviously, was trying to hide the identity of the vehicle. And they could drive down the road and paper tag off. Now you're not easily a different vehicle. You know, same description, you can have another tag on it. So if you're trying to provide the information to law enforcement, well, the vehicle had a tag on it. Well, they're not going to stop that vehicle with a paper tag. The person drives and taking that tag off. Individual inside, flee off on him. You can describe, he's got a camera in his hand, he's got a red hat on, he's got glasses on. Absolutely the vehicle type of wheels on it. Might even be able to tell exactly what kind of vehicle it is. What is. It's a pretty issue, hard to actually make a vehicle, or the actual model of the vehicle is. The wheels, the tinted windows. Okay, look at the picture. I'm thinking about the vehicle and surroundings, and you make observation of that you had to report this into the piece. We think it's important to report. You describe what man, the 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", be a little taller than that. He's wearing a leather coat. He's got sunglasses on, red hat, got a camera around his neck. Some of them look brown shoes, can't really see too much of shoes. Some camera. Now, in a fall day, it's be cold. It might be referred to be wind gloves. But again, just another observation to make around it. These are on trees, so probably fall or maybe early spring. Might be cold. Might be for his dresses, which you said individuals on his state. Would you find anything suspicious about him in your report? And out for me, really important. In mind, one key to successful neighborhood programs is recognizing the importance of your observation of your neighbors. And these skills that you're acting on a regular basis. After today, I treat each and every one of you. Looking at vehicles, looking at people, making observations. You can get your husband, kids, you can test them, get them involved too. Because it's not just about you, it's about your whole family being involved in this process. Teaching your family, teaching neighbors, teaching community members how to better observe. The first step, if any of you, I have been a crime victim. If any of you have ever been a crime victim, then you know how upsetting, what a stressful situation can be. And as hard as it is, try to help someone victim of crime to stay calm. And it is critically important for us to get good information. Because what happens when you get nervous, you get forget. For something very, very important for us to oversee. That's when you won't get upset. If you're a big crime or you did something serious, you know you have to make a report. It's difficult. This is an opportunity for you to remain calm. It's crucial to stay calm, remain control your senses, and alert yourself. And ever place yourself in danger when serving criminal activity. You don't want to be a bad guy. You know, here's reports on the news of who, some letter occurred and she comes down the road and beats him up and gets her back. All that makes great news. The other that make for great tragedy on the part of someone who tries something and takes steps to do something. We don't want people to do that. We want them to serve, stay calm, and report. Call 911 when it's a medical emergency, vehicle accident, fire, life danger. And that's part. It's not just these situations. You feel to be a case with persons where you need to call the police. Don't be afraid to call 911. Even in your mind, maybe I don't know if this is one word you're not. Let the police, let the call taker decide that. It's not true at all. They then react to the appropriate call taker. It doesn't tie up on one line. A lot of remain open. Other people who are calling in with emergencies. We never work communities afraid of all police to call 911 because they think it's not a real emergency. I see people calling our your company find that out that problem. And the the officers don't work at that center. The officers are going to location or an office. Hopefully, with an officer, provided with their contact information and call them directly. These are just not on the hope that you're not you know that you can call to get that information. You're not never this kind of inmate. What I want to report on provide a detailed description, highlight and underline the detailed description of individual fields. Stay on the front. Too many times you call them, they're tired, they're nervous, they're upset, they provide great information that they have the our one system. We can call phone back. We can call back. We can call landline phone back. You know, if you respect that was impossible, it's important for you to because as you're on the phone, all you can continue to ask questions as the process, especially if in progress call, officer responding out to help you. And prepare to answer follow-up questions because they probably will provide, if you can, provide some follow-up contact number with an officer or a detective can touch you later on. Remember, don't ever just say, write down details. Take a notepad in your purse, stick it in your wallet, stick it in your car, you can write it down. Bribe and tell why it seems suspicious. Please remember, don't talk to anyone else until you talk to the police. What happens is you'll witness something. The first people that the individuals call when they witness the crime or an incident is usually a family member. Police are usually third, fourth on this calls people make when they see something suspicious, dangerous, or legal. We should first call. You can call afterwards. You need to call us first. Because what happens is you call your wife, your son, your daughter, your father, and what's going to happen, and they tell you, are you sure? They ask you questions, are you sure that you saw? And by the time you get the police, you're even news about what you've seen. Remember who, when, and where. For more information, when not called, contact your local law enforcement agents, ask, speak with an officer, and they can provide all of that information. Always remember, stay calm, remain alert to your surroundings. And just a few points here in this slide about social media apps. Several of them are available to you. I know you can provide more information on this should you want to have it later on. I would suggest you write down this website. The iWatch is a great product. It allows almost near-time recording data and manage their apps for your iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, computer, or landline phones. There's several different apps that are out there. Not endorsing these particular products. They are there when you recognize them. It can take a photo. We all have phones. We all have phone cameras. We all have phone videos. Take a photograph. When you see something, photograph. You see things, you can videotape. You can type in a message, or you can use your note function on your phone. Know what you've seen at a later time. You can record those notes and contact law enforcement. For years and years of law enforcement, we can be without you. It's impossible. However, our neighborhood watch groups should only be reporters. When you take action, we just want you to report you as safely as you possibly can. And for contact information, you can always contact USNY.org or email the National Parents Association. Emily, you know what the time frame is on this will be posted on very question. Somebody welcome. What to try to get yourself to the farthest distance from that individual. Your all 9 immediately. And in your home, no matter your home, you all see doors locked. Never able to door someone. Great question. I would have to better jurisdiction, but for the start, really information don't sound specific street addresses for GIA. What we really are interested in is pretty close to what the writing is. Generally, what crime is occurring. The crime analyst, crime prevention officer, track those individuals down or that particular good. They can provide you with detailed information, but generally not release information on specific address. As far as resources or what you go to or go to the section, you'll find tremendous amount of information, not just on what we produce, but there's links to our crime part of justice, cops. There's a great deal of information to get off the US.org. Plus, our trainings are available. You're looking for specific community involved in neighborhood watch now. Several stories where Bobby Wilson at the Sheriff's Association can provide that. There are places all over the country, California, Atlanta, they're doing many work with neighborhood watch. But information is on the website. Very interesting question. Can you expound on a little bit more? I'm not sure what you're talking about in terms of value and neighborhood. Say community approach. That's a good question. Clearly, not for us to automobile insurance. All of those things would go up for all of us if people allow their homes or cars to be stolen or broken into. So the emphasis should be to unity that by taking specific actions to protect themselves, their home, their personal safety, and all those things, it is going to be there's a cost-benefit analysis here. It's going to be cost-effective for them and for all of us. People and more secure is running their home. They don't do that. Cost three things up, and clear that there's an economic impact. There's not against law enforcement. None of us will run, unfortunately. If the people in the community taking the effort to protect themselves, to let us free to go and do issues we are very hard and not prime issues. The serious issues are affecting us every day. Real type issues that could be allowed to focus on those because those homes are getting broken into, cars broken into. So look at it all around the benefit to all of it. A group of companies charge in fighting this. Oh, absolutely. Looking at resale values of properties, that'll be what if you have to rent a community, a lot of communities now with foreclosed properties, that's your position. Look at how everybody knows who crash captains are. Absolutely. And you know who to contact. I'm so glad questions here. Let's see if I know anything. Garbage recycling bins. We put out on the street that then tell them to stop being bins. Well, technically speaking, once it goes out on the street corner, it's no longer your property. The lines allows officers to be able to get evidence times. Once you put out garbage or trash, it's pretty much anybody that wants to go through it. Good point.